He suffers from both Usher syndrome and retinitis pigmentosa, rendering him semi-blind and partially deaf. Yet Michael John has not allowed these conditions to hold him back, and finding Jesus has led him to grow up as an adventurer. In fact, he's an adventurer extraordinaire and archaeologist who walks in the footsteps of people who lived in the days of the Old Testament.
When Michael John was born, his world was a world of blurred images and faint sounds. It was a world of Usher syndrome and retina pigmentosa. Being blind and partially deaf would be his first obstacles that kept him from leading a normal life.
I think that having Usher syndrome it's really tough to live with it. But I think the important thing is that you got to be positive on an everyday thing, that things will get better, keeping your mind off the problem that you have, and just focus on your work, your dream, my faith in God. That's very important to keep it going.
As if this wasn't enough, Michael also came from a broken home. His father was an alcoholic, and it was a confusing time for Michael. His afflictions isolated him as a child.
Especially when you go to school, kids like to make fun of you of your deafness and give name callings. That affects me quite a lot. You lose your confidence. Being able to grow up in a broken home, it's really a tough thing because you don't know who you are, where you stand and what your future holds.
Only from the age of 7 would he begin to speak properly. But education was another hurdle because he had learning disabilities. He was a child of frustration. He seemed to be not entirely deaf, but not entirely hearing, not entirely blind, but not seeing. He was a part of many worlds, but belonged to none.
Also, I found that because I was hard of hearing, I couldn't determine whether I belonged to a deaf world or I belonged to a hearing world. You're kind of like very confused where you actually fit in. And sometimes because when you are deaf, you are losing a lot out in group situations, so you don't always understand what people are talking about, so you lose out in a social environment.
His mother was one of the positive influences in his life. She insisted that he go to a deaf school, but that he should learn to speak rather than use sign language. She even took time off work to school him. During his matric year, Michael would also meet a spiritual mother called Ina, who would introduce him to the gospel, and she would encourage him to keep at his academics.
And I think through that, it's been an incredible journey for me to go to my first university at UNISA when I started studying archaeology. That was just something utterly extraordinary. When my first trip went to Israel in the year 2000, when I came back from the archaeological site and the tour that I went on, I was just like so amazed what I saw there, and it felt like God was speaking to me and that I need to go to university to study the archaeology.
Through his perseverance, he would get his first university degree. Then his second degree in theology would follow, and today he has 4 degrees to his name. This gave him the courage to take his first steps to becoming an Indiana Jones for Jesus. In 2014, Michael John's dream of seeing the ancient city of Lachish came true, where he walked in the footsteps of the people from the Old Testament.
Well, I've been to many archaeological sites over the years, but the most specific one, I went to Hazor and Lachish, 2 of the most prominent archaeological sites in the world, because there's a lot of history, great kings that have been there that tackled the city of Judah at that time. We know about Hezekiah, we know about Sennacherib, we know about Nebuchadnezzar. They've all been there, when they attacked the city of Lachish at the time. So I have a lot of history about it. But for me, I think the main thing is being there to experience the Bible, to experience the walk of Jesus, to experience the walk of God, what He's done for the people of Israel at that time. I think that is just something extraordinary. Not everyone had that opportunity to go to Israel and to be able to excavate. For me, it was just an incredible journey for me to be there.
For Michael, Archaeology has become his way of communicating with God, and as he claims, his way of hearing God's voice. And following that voice has led him to be victorious.
I think it's important for me that when studying archaeology, for me, it actually kept me in touch with God. You know, many a time when I read the Word and spend time with God, sometimes you don't hear it, God speak to me. But many a time when I'm studying archaeology, it kept me in touch with God and realizing that God is alive, that He is answering my prayer, He's leading me to the right direction. And I think God is using this as me an opportunity to witness to the people of our country, to the rest of the world, that we need to walk in with God, believe who He is. I think that's really important for me to do that.